I'll tell you a quick story. A guy tells me, he goes, so you voted for Biden? I was like, yeah, I actually did. And you voted for Hillary? Yeah, I did. So you're going to vote for Kamala? I go, no, I'm on the Trump train. He goes, straight up? I go, yeah. He goes, oh, so you're not gay? I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? He goes, because the Democrats, they're just gays. They're just a gay party now. As a straight man, how do you vote for them? And I looked at him and I go, you're actually absolutely right. So you're a straight guy. Any straight guy, I mean, men have been gravitating away from the Democratic Party for the last 4 to 5 years. And it's just getting weirder and less common sense. So you're talking about they're fragmenting just Latino men. Every man in America is like, nah, I'm good. So why do you think just men are overwhelmingly done with the Democratic Party?
So Cenk Uygur has been kind of doing the media circuit lately. He was on with Crystal Ball, then he went on Timcast IRL, and then followed that with the PBD podcast over there with Patrick Bet-David and crew. And in this one, we're going to have a look at Cenk Uygur kind of explaining the process that he's going through, and is the Republican Party what it used to be? Is the Democratic Party what it used to be? And where he kind of stands and where he fits in right now. Because he put out this post on X the other day, I'll quote it. I've been trying to figure out why I'm more optimistic now than I was before the election. Even though I was so against the guy who won, I know now MAGA is not my mortal enemy, and neither is the extreme left. My mortal enemy is the establishment, and they have been defeated. He followed it up saying, it's not just that the establishment candidate lost, it's that their media is mortally wounded. The source of their strength was not insipid politicians like Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden. The source of their strength was their propaganda machine, the mainstream media. Now, online media is strong enough that their oppressive monopoly on the American mind has been broken. Now, we're in the jungle. They hate that I love it. This uncontrolled marketplace of ideas is where I'm home. I'd rather be in the populist woods than an establishment prison. And a lot of people are believing that he's coming over towards the right. And although he claims he's a populist, he's even invented this kind of little phrase about the left populist and the right populist, which I don't know, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I believe there's just populism or not. A lot of people have been kind of falling for the grift. I'm calling it a grift. But look, if I'm wrong, I'm okay with it, because that's what people do. They typically are defeated by the Democrats. They get burnt out. They realize they've been lied to. And then they inherently find themselves surrounded by people who accept them within the Republican Party, or the MAGA Party is what I really mean, right? Because there's a lot of deep state Republicans as well that I'm not a big fan of. So I'm in the, prove it phase for Cenk Uygur, much like I was over the past year when it came to Vivek Ramaswamy, who suddenly found himself on the right in the MAGA Party as well. And, I said, I really like what this guy is saying, but I need him to maintain this status quo for a longer period of time before I really buy into the idea that this dude is aligning with me, which he's pretty much won me over now. And I look forward to the next 4 years of Vivek running Doge and just maintaining his support of Trump and of this America First policy. And then I'll make my final judgment on Vivek. But back to Cenk Uygur, if he maintains this current path that he's on, heck, who knows? He might end up surpassing Anna Kasparian, as it's been that, she's recently been kind of transitioning over to the America First type party as well, because she's witnessed and experienced the bad policies from the Democratic establishment that they support, when she was recently assaulted and then even attacked verbally when she came out and said, don't call me a birthing person. Because we know the left likes to change the definition of words or even invent new words like the whole Latinx, Latinx, whatever the heck it is. So everything that Cenk says here, I kind of take with a grain of salt, but I feel like him saying these things, or at least him admitting that he's aware of it, and then it's up to him where he goes next. So let's just have a look.
There's a tiny on policy, but more on how to react to the right wing, which is a really, I think, interesting conversation. So look, I get why the left is skeptical, because what happens is usually there's a pattern, and unfortunately some former TYT hosts have done this, where they beseech the right wing. They start agreeing a little bit and then a lot, and then next thing you know, they're pulling a Reuben or eating a Reuben sandwich, and I don't eat that, right? And I don't do that. But what has happened, to the core of your question? So there's tiny things around policy, like I believe in no cash bail, right? So if two guys commit a sexual assault, one is poor and one is rich, the rich guy pays bail, gets out, the poor guy can't. And by the way, they're accused. It's alleged, right? You don't know. But the poor guy stays in jail for mainly being poor. So it makes sense to be for no cash bail. But what wound up happening is California, for example, reduced some felonies to misdemeanors, which they didn't really tell us. It was in a prop measure. I voted for the prop measure, but they never actually said in the ballot measure, we're going to reduce penalties for these crimes, which are some significant crimes. And when you combine the two things, repeat offenders kept getting out of jail and doing another crime and another crime and another crime. And I realized, okay, wait a minute, we got an issue here. So on no cash, first of all, on the issue of taking the felonies to misdemeanors, once we found out what was going on, I'm like, look, I've been to every progressive convention there's been and every progressive conference, talked to every leader, et cetera. I never heard anyone say, let's take felonies and turn them into misdemeanors. I don't know where the hell that came from, right? So I said, okay, now that I see that, okay, if you commit 3 offenses, then you're a repeat offender and you have to put up a cash bail, okay? So if you're a guy, oh my God, geez, son, you got accused and you didn't do it, okay, no cash bail, right? But if you do it 3 times, you got to put up bail, no question. And now we voted in California for Prop 36, and I made the position against what you guys would call extreme left or radical left. I'm trying to call them max left now to be respectful, right? But those guys said crime is imaginary, and I said, no, crime is not imaginary. Crime is definitely real, and crime is going up. And guys, if we don't do something about putting these folks in jail if they're repeat offenders, we're going to lose everybody. And they said, you're nuts. That's not going to happen. Then Prop 36 in California was to put them back to felonies, right? It won with 70% of the vote. 70% of the vote, right? In California. And that's my point to my friends on the max left. Like, you guys want to be maximalists, but that's not where Democratic voters are, let alone Republican voters. So I was never in favor of making them misdemeanors, but I was in favor of unlimited cash bail. Now that I've changed that, but you see, it's tiny. It's a tiny change based on what I saw, based on experience, based on these guys getting out and doing it again. But the main thing, Patrick, is before, when I battled the right wing, it was a wall, right? I'm just like, nobody's listening to one another. They're just doing talking points. I hated it. And then MAGA looked like they were 100%. I'll be honest. I mean, in 2020, I was super pissed. And I said, look, I don't want to talk to Trump supporters. All I hear is the same thing. Trump, and they never waver. So what I'm saying to the left now is, no, I'm seeing something new and different here. The MAGA base has changed. Okay. That doesn't mean they don't like Trump. It doesn't mean that they're not right wing, but there is a significant portion of the MAGA base now that is, in my opinion, right wing populists who are actually anti-establishment, actually anti-corruption, actually anti-war. And what I'm trying to tell the left is, take the win.
So the thing about what Cenk is saying here is that the MAGA base has changed. He's completely wrong. MAGA has always been anti-war. It's pro-human. It's pro-freedom. It's pro-constitution. It's getting back to safe streets, affordable groceries, affordable healthcare, affordable gas, cost of living, everything. We've been saying drain the swamp for over 8 years now. Nothing has changed. And so when he's out here acting like MAGA base has changed, no, it's just that you didn't understand it when we first started out, right? You didn't get it. You bought into all the mainstream media propaganda, and then you went out and repeated it. And I mean, even when it comes to Donald Trump, Cenk Uygur hates Donald Trump. He calls him a moron, lunatic. He thinks he tried to rewrite the Constitution. He thinks he tried to steal an election. He thinks he tried to pass his own electorates. All these things that he's perpetuated over the years, and now all of a sudden he's out here saying that the MAGA base has changed. It hasn't. Do you think the MAGA base has changed? Because I don't feel like it does. I feel like it's been misunderstood. It's been labeled. And, we were the deplorables first, right? We were the basket of deplorables. Then we turned into maggots. Then it was, anything and everything that ends with ist or phobe. And then finally, Joe Biden said that we were garbage. And I think that Cenk Uygur co-signed to all of those positions. And, maybe he can come out here and just say, look, I fell for the mainstream media propaganda. I was wrong. But I don't think he's actually doing that. And I don't hear him saying that right here. It's the left has completely changed. It's that scale that we've seen that I think it was Joe Rogan, maybe Elon Musk, heck, probably both of them posted it, where it's the line scale. It shows center, left, and right. And it shows the people on the left running far to the left, which moves the center towards the left. But the people on the right stay in the same position, and then the right side, the MAGA base, whatever you want to call it, grows. And we've seen that as Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, Tulsi Gabbard, even RFK Jr. is now MAGA. So as much as I appreciate Cenk Uygur coming out here and saying these things, he's still wrong. He's inconsistent. He's still wrong. And hopefully he'll grasp it. And when he does, if he wants to come over to the MAGA party, he'll be welcome with open arms, especially if he repents, right?
Take the win. We've been standing opposed here for 20 years, trying to cut the Pentagon, trying to be anti-war, being getting money out of politics. If people say yes, for God's sake, that's our lost tribe. Those are our right-wing brother and sisters who are Americans, who are populists, who agree with us. Let's go fight the establishment together, because if we're united, they cannot stop us.
Are you at all in a place right now? You're registered what? Democrat?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you at all at a place where you've thought about being a registered independent or libertarian?
So the reason I became a Democrat is because in California, if you're an independent, you can't vote in Democratic primaries. And so I wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders, et cetera. So I became a Democrat, and I don't have any problem staying in the Democratic Party. I ran for president in the Democratic Party as a protest candidate against Biden, as you remember, right? Mm-hmm. But now we're in a situation where we've got realignment, where there's a left-right spectrum, then there is a populist establishment spectrum, right? So I am center-left, but I'm way populist. I'm 100% populist, right? So things are moving. If it turns out, and the parties have switched before, if the parties completely switch, then I don't have any allegiance to a party label or name, right? But right now, the Republicans are still right-wing, Democrats are still left-wing, so I'm going to stay there.
So why do you think the Democratic Party lost a Rogan, lost a Tulsi, lost a Bobby, lost a Musk, lost a Trump, all these guys were former Democrats. Why do you think, and let's set Trump aside, because maybe Trump's Democrat in the 80s and 90s. Let's kind of come to the names recently, like Musk, like Rogan, like Tulsi, like Bobby, these guys. Why do you think they're losing these names?
Yeah, so everything's a little bit different, and every person's different. So Tulsi, I think, was always secretly a right-winger, but Bobby Kennedy Jr. was not. He was definitely a Democrat, right? And so he's a decent example. So Bobby has opinions that a lot of people on the left don't agree with, right? To which I say something revolutionary to the left. So what? Okay, he agrees with us on the environment. He agrees with us on housing, on anti-corruption. He doesn't agree with us on vaccines, fluoride, et cetera, right? Why don't we have a conversation with the brother? Why don't we include him? Why don't we do a real primary? And if he wins, he wins. If he loses, he loses. Do you believe in democracy or don't you believe in democracy? And look, he would have easily lost the primary, in my opinion, in the Democratic side. But what the Democrats, and this is a cultural problem, right? So on policy, I'm totally left-wing. But when you talk about culturally, there's a couple of issues that are going on. Number one, I've always been when I was a kid, I was a Hulkamaniac, right? Yes. And so, I love all you folks who love the art and the opera and the ballet and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. And my sister does, and my friends, etc. But I'm not that guy. Like when I listen to NPR, I'd always be like, why are they whispering? Why don't they speak the fuck up? Right?
Very soothing.
Yeah. So culturally, I've always been a populist too. But the real problem with the left and the Democratic Party these days culturally is we don't want you, we don't want you, we don't want you. If there's a 2% disagreement, we want to cancel you and get you the hell out of here. Right wing, in my opinion, has their own version of cancel culture. We can get into that. But if the right wing, you agree with them 2%, they're like, oh, welcome in, come to the party. Oh, yeah, come on in, come on in. And if one party's constantly pushing people out and the other party's constantly inviting them in, well, at some point, the party inviting them in has a bigger tent, and you not only win the election, you win the popular vote. So Democrats have to get out of this mindset of, you must agree with Democratic leadership. And if you don't, you're ruining unity. shut up and get back in line. No, hell no. Young Turks have never been in line. We're never going to get in line. We're not going to get in line for MAGA. We're not going to get in line for the Democratic Party. And these idiots said, bow your head to Joe Biden. And Pat, you know, I was on the show. I was on every show. And I said, what are you guys, nuts? His brain has fallen out of his ear. He's shaking hands with invisible people. He thinks his uncle was eaten by cannibals. You guys are lunatics. And I will not agree to being a lunatic for your agenda.
So Cenk said right there that he'll never be the MAGA party. And that's something that we need to pay attention to. But we're going to skip forward a little bit because I want to talk about this part here where Patrick Bet-David talks about some more of the failures of the Democratic-run states. And then he shows a map that exposes some things that I think you guys are going to really like.
Here's what it comes down to me. Common sense prevails. It's very simple.
Yep.
Bad policies have consequences. Data shows everything. You can sit there and say whatever you want. You're claiming you have better ideas. Like, you know, in PHP, guys will say, I think we're doing it better than them. Really? Yeah. Go ahead. Show it in 2020. I think we're right and the other guys are wrong. Go ahead. Show your formula and show us what you do. And all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, they were right. Yeah, they were right. So maybe you ought to go back to listening to what's working. Common sense wins. Bad policies got exposed by Democrats in ways I cannot even believe that so many people bought into it. The basics, right? And then data coming back showing, yeah, California lost $1 trillion of money under management. New York lost $1 trillion of money under management. California, first time since 1850, 1851, you had a net migration rate of negative back to back to back. There is a reason for that. People are leaving you. And you know what was the most incredible data point that came out after the election? It's the map that shows which states got bluer and which states got redder. I don't know if you've seen this or not. Which states got redder, which states got bluer. Rob, we've shown this before. This isn't
Rob,
the
I sent
one.
it
It's
to you on
another one.
Slack.
Which states got bluer?
Check Slack, Rob.
And when you saw this, 50
This one?
states, 100%
Not one
of
blue.
all states in America went more red. And what are we talking about? And by the way, look who went the reddest.
Yeah, exactly.
California and New York. Look at
Florida.
those two. So by the way,
Jersey.
here's the thing. You know what? When sometimes we think about it and we say, don't make my Florida California. Don't make my Texas. And the one thing with us is, guess what? I've lived in California.
So have I.
I've lived in Texas for 5 years.
Yep.
And now we've been in Florida for 4 years. Okay. Texas got redder. But the fear was, well, what are you going to do when all the conservatives and Republicans and the red leaves New York and California? New York and California are going to get bluer. That's not what happened. So even with the red leaving, whoever that was left became, I don't know if you understand what
I'm getting.
So even after people left and people stayed, the people that stayed even got redder to say, dude, these policies are ridiculous. I'm out.
So before Cenk responds, I just want to add to what Patrick Bet-David said right there, because he indicated that the concern was these blue states were going to turn more blue because the Republicans were fleeing. But there's another side to that, and that is that the Democrats were actually leaving these blue states, and they were going to places like Texas and Florida, and the concern was they were going to bring their bad policies with them and then vote for Democrats in their new homes, essentially trying to turn their new home, their new city, their new surroundings into the surroundings that they just abandoned. But it was contrary. It was the opposite. As the blue states turned more red and the red states turned more red as well, it indicated that the Democrats who left the blue states left the bad policies with them. They're tired of catering to the fringe. And, you know, they probably learned through their own life experience that living in a red state was actually better for them, whether it was their taxes, their cost of living, whatever it was. So to echo what the hat behind Patrick Bet-David's shoulder says, that the future looks bright, I really believe that. And I also like the other hat behind his shoulder where he says Merry Christmas. But we're going to let Cenk finish up his comments, and then I'll wrap up this video.
Yeah, so Latino men is a good example. So Latino men were heavily on the Democratic side, and Democrats view politics. Look, I think the right wing plays identity politics too. Again, we can get into that, but unfortunately for the Democratic establishment, they view everything through identity, and they're like, okay, blacks are ours, Latinos are ours, women are ours, educated are ours, etc. Right? Educated is at least about something you did as opposed to who you are. So but they took Latino men for granted. And then after the election, when Latino men flipped over to the Republicans and to Trump, they started saying, oh, they're sexist. That's why they got that macho culture, et cetera. First of all, blaming the voters, incredibly dumb strategy and also incorrect. And if you ignore that map that you just showed, that's a disaster for the Democratic Party. If you keep ignoring reality and ignoring the truth, that's how you lead to more losses. So if Latino men are so sexist, then why is the president of Mexico a woman? Right? If Latino men are so sexist, why did they vote for Hillary Clinton by a 31-point margin? This doesn't have anything to do with sexism. What it has to do with is that you didn't deliver for Latinos.
But
okay,
Cenk, it wasn't just Latino men. It was also black men, white men, basically any man. I'll tell you a quick story. A guy tells me, he goes, so you voted for Biden? I was like, yeah, I actually did. And you voted for Hillary? Yeah, I did. So you're going to vote for Kamala? I go, no, I'm on the Trump train. He goes, straight up? I go, yeah. He goes, oh, so you're not gay? I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? He goes, because the Democrats, they're just gays. They're just a gay party now. As a straight man, how do you vote for them? And I looked at him and I go, you're actually absolutely right. So you're a straight guy. Any straight guy, I mean, men have been gravitating away from the Democratic Party for the last 4 to 5 years. And it's just getting weirder and less common sense. So you're talking about they're fragmenting just Latino men. Every man in America is like, nah, I'm good. So why do you think just men are overwhelmingly done with the Democratic Party?
Obviously, it's more nuanced than that because the percentages are not.
It's actually not that nuanced.
Yeah.
The number has shifted dramatically.
No, but I grant you the shift. That's exactly what we're talking about, right?
He has a problem with the gay community. But go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Okay, so
no judge. How can I be homophobic? My girlfriend's gay.
So to wrap this one up, I love what Adam said at the end right there. And I'll add that it wasn't just the Latino, black and white men. It was also Muslim and Jewish men. I think everybody realizes that if you're a white guy for Harris or whatever it was, you didn't want to associate with it. It was a bunch of gay dudes. And if you're not gay, then you don't want to be called gay. You don't want to be in the gay party, right? And so wrapping up, I thought that last part that Adam said was kind of funny because that was my initial thought in my head was, you know, the whole white guys for Harris campaign appeared to be a bunch of gay dudes. And if you're straight, you don't want to be called gay. It's just simple as that, right? And vice versa, I'm sure. It's not like some out of the norm extreme take. And I want to say that Cenk appears to be saying a lot of the right stuff, but it's going to take time for people like me to accept that he's not just grifting and trying to save his career because, in my opinion, like I said in the beginning, he's backed the wrong horse. He knows it. And he recognizes that he's on the wrong side of history and he's actually possibly, he maybe has some principles in there and he realizes that the Democratic Party has swayed away from his principles. And that's why he's inventing this new left populist category because he wants to stay on the left, but he doesn't want to be a Democrat. So I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? I thought this was an excellent conversation. It was more of a conversation rather than a debate. And I hope you guys appreciate that. I'm trying to evolve and progress this channel into more than just person A battles person B. And I like to get into covering more of the ongoings of the daily news and stuff like that, especially as we get into the Trump term. I think there's going to be a lot of great things that we can report on. And hopefully you guys are down for that. If you support it, make sure you hit that like button. Share this video, subscribe to the channel. All three of those things really help me out. I'm on a mission to get this channel ahead of Francesca Fiorentini's channel, which has 100,000 subs. So it's going to take me some work. But to be honest with you, this channel gets more views on a monthly basis. So with your guys' help, and only your guys' help, you can get me there. And I appreciate it. So anyways, I want to let you know also you can catch me Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern on this channel with the Jar Openers podcast. It's where we go live. We have a lot of fun. We engage in conversation with the chat. And it's a preview of where I want to take the channel in the future. So thank you for watching to the end, and I'll see you guys in the next video.